So today's episode, we're going to be talking about low-cost private jet flights. Now, is this possible? Okay. Now, this channel is all about business aviation. My name is Fabrizio and lots of content on here. If you haven't subscribed to Budget TV, I encourage you to subscribe. Have a look around, over 400 plus videos on the subject of business aviation and other things related to flying, which is very interesting. But today we're going to be talking about how the airlines can do the low-cost model and how a private jet operation can't. And those buzzwords that are out there, you know, buy an empty leg, do this, that, I'm going to go into explaining how this whole thing works and what you have to really watch out for. Now, first of all, let's talk about the airlines. Now, airlines, we know there's low-cost airlines out there. I've personally worked for a couple of low-cost airlines as a pilot. And let me just explain how the low-cost model works. Now, first of all, low-cost doesn't mean they run everything cheaply. Okay, so don't think that a low-cost airline is dangerous. They are able to offer low fares for a reason. I'm going to explain how that works. Now, basically, first of all, on other low-cost airlines, what they tend to have is they tend to have people they hire do more than one job. So, for example, one of the ones I worked for, you'd get to the airport and you had to get in 15, 20 minutes earlier than maybe with another airline because you had to print off all the paperwork for the flight. That wasn't done for you. It wasn't handed to you in an envelope. You didn't have a flight dispatcher that would sit down with you and brief you, that had gone through everything for you. You had to do all that. Plus, the flight attendants needed to get there early because they needed to clean the airplane. So that's another thing that needed to be done. So that already eliminates quite a bit of the cost. The other thing they do, on a 189-seater aircraft, they don't sell 189 seats for $10 or £10 or euros or whatever it may be. They will sell a certain number of seats at a low price, and then they will increase the price. But then they'll also do another thing. They'll sell stuff on the aeroplane. Now, one of the flights I used to fly from London, we used to fly a lot to Milan and other places in Italy and back. And obviously when you land at London Stansted Airport, most people are travelling to London. You have to jump on the train. And there are queues to get your train ticket. So we would be selling train tickets on the flights. But, the flight attendants are talking away to the passengers about buying these tickets and they're just not listening. But when I used to come over the PA from the cockpit, so it's captain speaking, and talk to them about, you won't have to queue up when you get to the other end if you buy your ticket on board, plus you get a 10% discount. Immediately, they'd sell more tickets. And the flight attendants were happy with that because they'd make more money because they used to make a percentage of sales. So the airline are making up money, what they call ancillary revenue. So whether they're selling you, rent a car, ticket, sandwich, a bottle of perfume, that will make up for the $10 ticket. And then now they're charging you for bags as well. So if you want to bring hand luggage, you have to pay. If you want to bring one suitcase, you pay extra. Second suitcase, you pay extra. So this is how basically the airlines are able to offer the so-called low fares. But sometimes it's not even cheaper to fly with one of the low-cost airlines than flying with a national flag carrier. So if you are booking a flight with the airlines, this is just how this system works. But on a private jet, you can't take this model to private jets. Because when you charter a private jet, you're chartering the whole airplane. And with the airlines, the airline costs so much per hour to operate. With the private jet, it costs so much to operate per hour. But when you charter the jet, you're chartering the jet. You're not buying a seat. And I know there are some people that sell seats on private jets, but do you really want to get on a small little jet with a load of strangers? That's maybe got a dog or whatever that's jumping all over the place and that. Private jets are small compared to the airlines. So, don't go buying a seat on a private jet. Fly. Plus, you're a lot safer if you fly with the airlines. So you really want to stay away from any private jet operator that's offering the so-called low fares, because there are no low fares. And if there are low fares, they're cutting corners somewhere. Now let's talk about the cost to operate a private jet. So when you're paying $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 an hour for the aeroplane, there's a number of things in that hourly rate. Okay, you've got the aircraft they have to pay for, the crew. When I say crew, you're paying for their salary, you're paying for their training, you're paying for their life insurance, medicals, all that kind of stuff, health insurance, maintenance. And maintenance, there's both maintenance that has to be done whether the airplane flies or not, and that's built into the fixed cost. And then there's the variable maintenance bits, which are done according to how many hours you fly and how many cycles, how many landings and takeoffs the airplane does. And then you've got insurance, which is paid in any case. Then you've got all the variable bits where you've got fuel, for example, and we know the price of fuel has gone up recently. So that has, adds into the cost per hour. You've got, and fuel varies. So in one location it will cost a certain amount, another location it will cost another amount. Then you've got the landing fees, and again that will change from airport to airport. You've got the airway fees, you've got the catering, you've got the flight planning, you've got the permits, you've got the crew, HOTAC, so hotel accommodation, and that. Are they putting them up at the Ritz, Marriott, Holiday Inn, or some poxy 2-star hotel? Because some operators like to put their pilots in 2-3-star hotels. And obviously the crew are not going to be too happy. Is breakfast included, or do they have to eat into their per diems to pay for their breakfast? All this kind of thing. If you are paying a low cost for a private jet flight, they are cutting corners on some of these things. And very often it's the crew they're cutting corners on, and the maintenance. So stay away from that. Now let's talk about the empty legs, because there's lots of talks about empty legs. You pay 70% less, but how does the empty leg work? Well, when you charter a private jet from London to New York, you're always paying to go from London, New York, London. Even if you're just going one way, you're always paying two ways, because the charter company need to bring the airplane back to base. But what the charter companies are doing now, thanks to systems online like Avinode and that, when the flight's going to New York, they will advertise through Avinode, which goes out to 2,600 brokers across the world, that they have a Gulfstream G5 landing in New York and is available for charter in New York. So if they're able to pick up another charter from New York to somewhere, then of course, that part of that next leg has already been paid for the previous client. Okay, and that way the charter company can make up a bit more money. But there may be a positioning flight, so they have to position the airplane to Boston. So that positioning flight, that New York-Boston, will be advertised as an empty leg, so that the charter company can recoup some of the money. And they'll advertise that, with a 70% discount to what you usually cost. They'll make some money on it because it's already paid for by the previous, because the previous client paid for the airplane to reposition back to London. But instead of repositioning back to London, it's just going over to Boston, picking somebody up, and then flying back to London. So there's all this kind of stuff going on. So it's very, very difficult, well, say impossible, unless you're compromising safety, to offer cheap private jet flights. I mean, the empty leg may work in certain cases, but then you've got to look at the operator. And now you've got all these apps with all this fancy AI built into it that you can just type in, you need to go from A to B, 4 passengers, tomorrow morning, boom, and stuff will come up. But what the AI is not doing, and what it's not giving you, it's not giving that personal touch, which is really, really important. I mean, I recommend, if you're going to fly by private jet, you're thinking about it, and now with all the Easter holidays and all the queuing up at with the airlines terminals and that, it's becoming an absolute nightmare. So more people are traveling by private. In fact, private jet travel's up 50% now, according to Honeywell, the recent survey that they did. So more people are looking into private jet travel, and chartering is a good way to start. Okay, but you want to have a trusted broker, a human being that you can call up and say, look, like you can call me. I mean, I do charters, and you say, Fabrizio, I need to go from New York to Dallas next week with 4 passengers, can you find me a flight? And I'll ask you a few questions to find out, what type of airplane you like, catering and all those kind of things. And then I'll ring some of the trusted operators that I work with. And that's the important thing, It's important to have a broker that, does their vetting. And that's really, really important. And so that's how the whole thing works. So low-cost travel with private jets is not coming anywhere soon. It's not possible for the reasons I explained. The airlines can do it. The private jet operators can't do it. And again, safety record is not anywhere near the safety record the airlines have, and you can check my video I did on that, and you'll see the safety record in private aviation and why it is what it is. So what can we do to up the game? We just have to use certain type of operators, certain type of aircraft, and which guarantees your safety. But you're not going to be paying cheap price like you would with a low-cost airline or even with a national flag carrier. Private jet travel is more expensive than normal airline travel, and it's going to stay that way, and it's only for certain people, but if you have got that kind of money, I certainly would recommend flying private. All the hassle we have with the airlines, which is just even more now, it's gone, it's just gone crazy. Fly private, and that's why flights are up 50%, and that number's going up. Inventory on private jets right now is down as low as 3%. So only 3% of the pre-owned, of aircraft that are already out there that have been built are actually for sale. That number's usually around about 12%. So this is what's happening. So private jet travel is on the increase. It's not cheap, but look into it, and I'm available. You can send me an email and we'll schedule you in for a call and we'll find out more about what your needs are travel-wise and see if we can work out some charters to start with, maybe a lease, maybe get you an aircraft that you can buy and we can manage it for you, all this kind of good stuff. Now, before I go, check this other video I did just recently, an interview with Steve Mira. He's a UFO investigator. UFO is an unidentified flying object. He talks about what these objects actually are, about the technology that's already out there, that's not officially known, but's out there, and that a lot of these objects are actually man-made. And he tells us a few interesting things in this interview, so I encourage you to go click on that and have a watch of that interview. Very interesting. And if you haven't subscribed to BizJet TV, I encourage you to subscribe, and I hope to see you on a one-to-one call to discuss your aviation needs. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli on BizJet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.